Hello, Jim Townsend here. This is my wife, Judith. This is my public notice to the Ministry of Housing and Social Development that I no longer wish to accept disability checks. I no longer want to be on disability assistance. I've gotten charged recently with uttering threats for writing a letter of complaint to the Ombudsman about my disability worker. After getting charged and going over my information that I got back under the Freedom of Information Act, all of my records from the Disability Office, I find that my allegations were in fact absolutely correct. And I learned much that I didn't even know, that put a lot of things together, and I realized that my own disability worker has been working against me trying to find employment for myself. I was exactly right on the money. The allegations that I made, that I posted on Gentile Defense League.org, which is my blog, a long time ago whenever they first laid these charges. What I also found out from the files is the RCMP have been going around and playing around with an awful lot of provincial offices and defaming my character. What I mean by defaming my character is with all of these organizations, there's a long line of allegations. We had to face public servants coming up and bothering us and telling us they had anonymous complaints, and now we find out and we have proof that all of these anonymous complaints came from the RCMP. Now, I do not have a criminal record. The RCMP, on the other hand, do have a criminal record. We don't need to mention people like Judge Ramsey and the RCMP officers involved with him, or the RCMP officers that washed the blood out of Mindy Tran's clothes, or anything so horrendous as that, or the people that broke into the FLQ headquarters, or broke into the dynamite plant, or executed a young man in a jail cell up in Smithers, to understand what the RCMP is. You see, here's the thing, there's a lot of good people in the RCMP, a lot of dedicated people in the RCMP. However, there's some old adages that apply. One bad apple can ruin the whole box. But you see, this is a very old box, and there's a whole lot of bad apples in it. And you get to the point that you say, you know what, there might be some good apples in there, but they're all covered with the gut from the bad apples, and the box is screwed anyways. Let's just toss the whole thing out. So the RCMP contract is due for renewal this year in BC. So a lot of people like me that have been under attack by the RCMP for a long time, merely because we complain about their dereliction of duty, just like Pat Clemens attacks me for complaining to the Ombudsman. Well, I have an office of the Ombudsman to complain to if the person that you complain about is just going to lay charges against you for uttering threats. His own testimony, sworn testimony, says that he wasn't even concerned with the letters. Now, here's the thing. He charges me with uttering threats, saying that it's the contents of the letters. The cop that charged me didn't even charge me with what I wrote. He changed what I wrote and charged me with what he wrote. Well, my disability worker said in his own testimony that he never thought anything of my letters. He was alarmed once the RCMP put an alarm in his house, of all things. And it just gets more bizarre and more bizarre. And it turns out that the NCO of Vernon is an RCMP officer that years ago we complained about dereliction of duty after we had our house broken into. Now, the reason that we complained about it, after trying for 4 years to get information on the file back for the RCMP, is because we had a problem with CRA. And CRA said that we owed them a whole pile of money, and I said, no, we lost all of that equipment in a break-in. They said, well, what proof do you have? So we went to the RCMP, who of course did not have any files, but couldn't just tell us that outright. We had to finally make a formal complaint. And when the complaint didn't satisfy us, because basically they agreed with what my complaint was, but then they said they couldn't support it. And I wondered what the heck was going on, and I sent away from my files, RCMP files, under the Freedom of Information Act. It took, the RCMP legally have 30 days to surrender those files. Well, don't they have to follow any of the laws they enforce? It took 14 months, 14 times as long. Then they had to take the file back because half of the file, after over a year of doctoring it and putting it together, wasn't even about me. It was about another Harry James Townsend that was 6'5", blonde-haired, blue-eyed, and very violent, in contrast to me, that has no criminal record. Well, it's obvious what's going on there, so they had to revise the thing and give it back to me. And yet, in spite of all of that, this nonsense, they keep on playing these silly little games. Well, we were out on our mining claim, and we have evidence from our files that not only was my disability worker and the mining titles all talking to the Attorney General's office and to the RCMP about us out on our mining claim, where we're sitting in the middle of nowhere with no electricity, no telephones, not even enough money to survive on, me playing in a mud puddle with a pan, maybe just sitting there because I'm in so much pain that it moves me to tears and I don't want anybody to see me cry. Well, no. Why would a disability officer ever think anything like that, that I have feelings or something? At any rate, a lot of you have heard my bitch and everything else, but you know what? I sit here and I say, you know what? This government's just evil, wicked, mean, and nasty. And I say, but you know what? You can't fight evil, because when you try and fight evil, you get the same yuck on you that evil has on it. So the only thing that you can do is try and create, and I am a creator. I created my Pentagon pyramids, software emulation of a human brain. I have copyrights, I have patents, and I admit that, as brilliant as some people think that I am, that I've frittered away an awful lot of my life fighting with petty bureaucrats that really don't care for anything more than just feathering their own nests with the services that they're supposed to provide to the people that have actually paid for those services all their lives. Well, you know what? I play into the system by taking this mere pittance. I've had my arms broken right off on the inside so that I couldn't even use my own hands. And yes, I was absolutely 100 dependent on you. But you know what? I can move my hands well enough to pick food out of the garbage can. So I no longer need you. Because what you amounts to doesn't even amount to that much. What you give us, not even that much. And the torture that you put us through, the constant defamation of characters. This file is full of what you call allegations of fraud, and yet you know what? We were never presumed innocent. Every time we were assumed guilty, every time you cut off our financial assistance until we proved ourselves innocent, and you never once apologized. Nothing like that. What that proves every time is that every one of them allegations was false, and that was a criminal code violation called defamation of character. And that's all it is to deal with you people. You hold your own little courts. If anybody says anything to you, you make up allegations, false allegations. I was crushed by a tractor. After that, in the cusp, office agent lost my arbitration report that I had for over a year. And I sent a letter of complaint to the ombudsman, and she wrote a letter saying that I had, what did she say? Something, how did I comport myself?
No, inappropriate behavior.
Yeah, and what did the file say?
It said that the ban was due to letters that you wrote, to various letters to the government.
Yeah, and
faxes.
And what's it say about the ladies in the office? How did we treat them?
It said we were polite and kind and non-threatening.
Yeah, all sorts of stuff like that
Yeah.
in there. So here's the thing. Even my arrest report by the police officer says the same thing. What did he say? I was
engaging.
polite.
Very animate, polite, and engaging.
Animated, polite, and engaging. And this is how I treat people that I deal with in the office and everything else. Now, I know these ladies don't have anything to do with the paperwork, but I kept on asking where the paperwork was. And you know what? Now, think about this for a moment. Every time that the people behind the nice ladies in the office, the people on the telephone that refuse to give their names, right, for their own protection and all that other sort of stuff, the people that send you letters and ask you to call them so they can talk to you rather than putting in writing what it is that they want to talk about, Those people are the ones that I write letters to after they write me letters making false allegations. It's not the people in the office that have anything that to fear from me. I'm not writing letters to them. I'm writing letters to the people that can't even name themselves, that make up these false allegations one after the other, that are on the phone constantly with the RCMP. What about the laws that these RCMP pretend to uphold? Section 91 and Section 92 of the Constitution, that's supposed to be the supreme law of Canada. The 1952 Lord Nelson case, Judge C.J. Rinfret presiding there, said that it is the intent of the legislation that there is watertight compartments between the provincial and federal governments. And yet here's this federal... well, actually, if you read a history of the RCMP, what you see there is strike breakers for the people that own the government. You have these federal strike breakers that are calling all of these provincial governments, which is entirely unlawful according to our supposed Constitution, that they're swear an oath to uphold. You know, like I go into court to try and defend myself. I have the judge's oath right there that I got off the Justice Department's website that says that he's supposed to be fair and impartial. The Crown Prosecutor gets to put in all of her evidence, and she gets to put in her witnesses, but I make an application because, well, we gave it to, who was that lady that we gave it? The Justice of the Peace, because she's supposed to accept your witnesses. She says, oh, well, some of these are from out of town, so I can't accept all of them, so I'm just going to put them all over to the judge. Well, I show the judge in the courtroom. I pick up my charges and I said, these people are mentioned in here. Not only that, I have the registered letters that I sent to all these people the whole time, that even in the witness report says that I've been communicating with these people. And he decided that even though these people had all been written letters about everything that was going all along, even though they had registered letters, and even though two of the people that I wanted to call, it said within the charges were the ones that initiated the charges, I couldn't call them as witnesses. I get to cross-examine the arresting officer, who has no actual knowledge of any of the case. So even what he is putting in there is hearsay, because he was told to by the people that I couldn't call as witnesses. And it's sworn to by this Justice of the Peace, who has no knowledge of the events either. You know, like, this is totally ridiculous. And the charge is made up by a guy who I complained to the Ombudsman. And here I find out from all of my stuff that everything that I said about him is absolutely true. At any rate, I'm sorry about the rant, but these guys they drive you to distraction. It's mental torture. I mean, they give us not hardly enough to even live on. Anybody that lives on disability knows what it means, more month than money. Yeah, you run out of it. And here's a disability worker that's supposed to be so sensitive to us. He knows that the RCMP are bringing up all of these people, even though we're legally licensed to be on his property. They're bringing up all of these people to force us off of there because their higher-ups want us gone. He knows it's the end of the month that we have no food or anything else, and yet he cuts off our disability check because he tells us he's doing the investigation and he wants to know if we've found any minerals on the property and anything else. That's the first thing he said whenever you called, wasn't it?
Yes, about the drive-by shooting and the minerals.
You know, and then he tries to make out that this whole thing is about some stupid little pittance overpayment. Well, their own records prove that they've ripped us off for tens of thousands of dollars, and here I am, I make it perfectly blatant whenever I write to the Ombudsman and write him the first time. I don't even mention the overpayment thing. I could give a damn about it. Who gives a hell about a couple $100 when a bullet has just about killed their child? Now, these people don't understand why I would write a letter, yet this guy, who the police alarmed, they say, oh, they want my firearms because I write letters. Now, hang on here. How dangerous am I? I have no criminal record, no record of violence. What's the most physical damage you can do with a letter? A paper cut? So here's a guy that's pissing his pants, and he hasn't even got a paper cut. And yet, here, I want to show you why I keep on beacon off. Can you hold that for a second, my love? Here, I'll just look at right there. Okay? That's a bullet hole. That's a bullet hole. See that? Now, that's a bullet hole that is as big as the end of my finger. As big as the end of my finger. And 5 of those punched holes right through my motorhome. Now, would you be upset? Would you be upset if you're sleeping with your wife in the back bedroom there in the middle of the night and your son's sleeping right on the other side of there and these bullets start going through your motorhome? So look at right there on the door. Can you see, is that on the door there, Jude? You see the point to the bullet hole, Lovey. And then, yeah, see the bullet hole? That's a bullet hole through my door. I still haven't had the money to replace the windows. Yeah, they gave us some money from the insurance company, $1,000 to fix my motorhome, but we were so desperate at the time that we had to spend it for stuff like food and getting a few repairs made to our motorhome. So I got a piece of glass out of an old refrigerator out of the dump and repaired my my door. You know, like, we do everything that we can in order to try to be self-sustaining, and I'm trying to get off of this. Who wants to live with these miserable a-holes over their shoulder all the time? I feel like I should have an ankle bracelet on. You know what? Dealing with the government for the last 15 years, have you felt that you're in jail?
Yes.
You know, that you've been doing time?
Yeah.
You know, this constant attack by everybody that makes us prove our innocence and all that other sort of stuff. You know, I seen this poster on the wall whenever I went into the courthouse. It says, it's got "Justice Blindfolded." And I look at it, it looks kind of funny, and I thought, what's that? Just a bunch of lawyers pin the tail on the donkey, and they're saying, here, load us up with coin or something like that? Well, it was after the experience of trying to actually putting a subpoena to the judge to examine our witnesses and see if we could call these witnesses. He says, I can't accept the evidence. I'm only accepting sworn testimony. He says, I'm not accepting any of your witnesses. But at the same time that they'd held this little court case for the express purpose of determining whether or not I could provide witnesses, the Crown Prosecutor says, and oh, I have more evidence that I would like to submit at this time. Well, you know what? They never had any evidence to submit at the time that they laid the charges. Isn't that just a little bit disingenuous? You know what? These people say there's something wrong with me because I hate them. But isn't there something repulsive about that? I mean, really think about it. Justice blind? I'm disabled. I think everybody should have an equal opportunity. But at any rate, I'll read my letter that I wrote, and you guys can judge for yourselves. You know, out here in the real world, everybody is free and equal. But in the courts, there's a feudal system left over from the Dark Ages, where everybody has to go and bow and scrape to these people that treat them like shit, and yet when they walk out of them courthouse doors at night, they expected to be treated free and equal, and with just as much respect as the rest of us. Well, you know what? What goes around comes around. And you people have been doing some just absolutely nasty, nasty things to people in this country for an awful long time. Now, you can call everybody crazy if you want, but you know what? There are enough of us that have taken the time to go and actually examine the evidence. I write a software emulation of a human brain. I've studied this problem for 20 years. I know unequivocally, absolutely, that the BNA Act was never a legitimate act of the UK Parliament. And it starts from there. That's the supreme law of Canada. These people say this is the supreme law of Canada. And the preamble of that Constitution, that phony Constitution, says recognizing the supremacy of God and the rule of a very select little group of people that swear allegiance to a foreign private legal system franchise called the Bar Association. Well, why should a country of free men not be ruled by free men? By all of us. Why should we be ruled by one small little segment of lawyers? The rule of law is the rule of lawyers. It's that simple. Everybody can see that. And I mean, are these people irreproachable that they should be given absolute right to rule our lives? Well, you know what? Comedy sometimes pokes fun at real life. And we've all heard that joke. Well, you know, it's only 99% of lawyers that give the rest a bad name. What's really funny about that, that's just about everybody's experience, too. At any rate, I keep on begging off, so without further ado, I should read this letter to you. Do you want to hold this, Jude? And here, I don't want any more checks. You just topped up my supplement shelter stuff, and I don't want it. You're not worth the liabilities that accrue to me for these debt instrument liabilities that you give to me that are written on my name in the first place. You put me in debt, and yet you want me to kowtow to you while you put me in debt to pay your way. Posted for public notice online at http://gentiledefenseleague.org. That's my blog. 5th of March 2011. Cancellation of disability account number GA003-74770. Physical person, Harry James Townsend. Defrauded surety for strawman person, Harry James Townsend, SIN 713632768. Dear Sir or Madam, or whom it may concern, or Janet Reinbold, please find and close 2 checks that you have sent to us to top up our rental requirements. Also, please cancel my disability account. I do not want your debilitating assistance. Starving without begging to you for every scrap is a kinder and more dignified death than starving while I am forced to beg from you. I feel as if I am a victim of constructive fraud. What social contract? Although I am permanently disabled and legally entitled to move anywhere because of my permanent disability, for some reason it feels as if I am wearing an ankle bracelet and must constantly report my every movement. The pitiful funds your service provides have not been worth the productive capacity of my life and are certainly not worth my freedom. I got my files back under the Freedom of Information Act and found out that my allegations of Pat Clemens to the Ombudsman were absolutely true. Not only that, your files show that you consistently and purposely attack anyone who complains about any of your performances, and the RCMP do that as well. I complained about the NACUSP office administrator who buried my arbitration order that was outstanding for over a year when we were unlawfully evicted and I was subsequently crushed by a tractor. Knowing that I thought it was her fault for hiding my arbitration order after I made a complaint to the Ombudsman, she wrote a letter that banned me from government offices for my behavior in government offices, when their own investigations show at the time that I was always polite and non-threatening, and in fact did not even have the use of my arms when she made the complaint. The truth is, the ladies in the office hugged me when they saw me, and one of them burst into tears. Your own notes also show I was always nice in the office, but you banned me. On the many occasions your records show you have investigated me for fraud, you have always concluded that I was not guilty after first cutting off my funds and making me prove my innocence. This means that your many and constant allegations against me are nothing more than defamation of character. I did not pay into your useless social programs all of my life to be treated like a criminal for asking you to provide the service that pays for your livelihoods. Your own records show your actions to be beyond disgusting and constitute constructive fraud. You admit that my child tax benefits are exempt, and yet you cut me off my disability payments when we showed you that they were exempt, and your own files admit you knew they were exempt. No one else is required to show where they spend their child tax benefits, but we had to account for every penny of where we made purchases. Even when we provided you with our children's bank accounts to show you that we had given them some of the benefits meant for them, and you knew where every penny went to, you still defrauded us of benefits, which we were legally entitled to. That is not the only time you cut us off and defrauded us of thousands of dollars. The person doing the investigation at this time was provided with actual photocopies of the check, which was held for a week at the bank when we got it back. Not only that, but Fawn filled out my application because I could not write when she filled out my PWD application, so she knew better from the beginning. Your records show that you engage in illegal activities against us and colluded with the RCMP and MTO to seize our mining claim. Your records show Pat Clemens knew all details at all times since he had our files since we were at Dutchess Campground, and your records show you were in contact with the RCMP over us. Unlike your RCMP cohorts, I do not have a criminal record. The criminal code defines dwelling house means the whole or part of a building or a structure that is kept or occupied as a permanent or temporary residence and includes B. A unit that is designed to be mobile and to be used as a permanent or temporary residence and that is being used as such a residence. Your efforts to assist the RCMP and MTO to seize our mining claim constitute real fraud and collusion. Further, they are also an invasion of our privacy. We found out from our records that while Pat first claimed he knew of the drive-by shooting from the radio and newspaper, he then claimed my wife told him about it, and the records show the actual truth was that he knew about it because he was in collusion with the RCMP to remove us from the property. Your own records show that you do not keep proper records and that your employees are incapable of competently accessing what you do have. Even when we show you guidelines written by the government to explain their rights to the disabled, you do not follow your own regulations. You also never fixed my teeth, which caused me constant pain. My wife and I have provided my own rehabilitation without your non-accessible programs. Your niggling pittance is not worth the irritation of dealing with you. You would think Pat Clemens would be doing all he could to help me find employment. It certainly cost hundreds of dollars less for your agency to have me living on my mining claim and attempting to productively employ myself. Are you purposely discriminating against me because I am disabled? Many people are disabled in our society. I do admit that not every position is for everyone. No one wants to drive with a blind taxi driver. Look at Justice even in our society. She is not a gimp like me. But she is stone cold blind, and to me that sounds that it might exclude like it might exclude her more from the courts than me from my mining claim. The truth is that the truth could be sitting 2 inches in front of the nose of justice, and it would be unable to see whether anything was true or not. Go down to the courthouse and look for yourself. Justice, stone blind as a post. Come to think of it, a guy might be in less jeopardy with a blind taxi driver, but it does make you wonder what other disabilities justice suffers from other than being blindfolded by lawyers playing pin the tail on the donkey. Your own records show my allegations about Pat to the Ombudsman are entirely accurate. The charges themselves show Pat was unconcerned with my letters, which I was charged for writing, but he was concerned with my websites, which you illegally tried to take down. Each of my info websites cost me 99 cents each, the price of a cop's donut, just to put that into perspective for you. The most singularly telling thing about your abysmal performances, as outlined by your own records, is the fact that you never once apologized for your many defamations after starving us while we proved our innocence. I am going back to my mining claim that I have paid the legal licenses for. Very few prospectors have ever made it rich in the BC goldfields. But you never know. I just might be in that 1/100th of 1% that make it. If I stick with you guys, I will for certain be a loser. I will no longer deal with you in any circumstances. I no longer consent and waive the benefits. So cease and desist with your harassing assistance and govern yourself accordingly. Sincerely, Harry James Townsend, natural person with real feelings. Well, thank you very much, my audience, for bearing with me and seeing what I have to say. I thank you for being my witnesses as I give this public notice to my public officials who I hereby fire en masse in entirety. I do not vote for your government to represent me. I do not accept that you steal my birthright with your criminal claim of right. I do not accept that you blindfold justice and deny me access to lawful courts while you attack me under criminal color of law. I understand how your de facto government attacks my country. Read Section 15 of the Criminal Code. You people know full well that you cannot convict people because you are in de facto power of authority. Nobody votes for you. You do not have a majority vote even. And I simply do not give up my lawful de jure sovereignty. Do you, my love?
No, I don't.
Do you want these people's pennies to be treated like this any longer?
No.
Is there anything you'd like to say to them?
I think that I agree with you fully, and you've put it very well.
Peace, everybody. Love. We're not asking for a lot. Just leave us alone.
Yeah.